Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
Minister of Immigration Brent Symonette says the Bahamas is in compliance with UN refugee rules. That story straight ahead.
The Prime Minister gives us what's at the top of his agenda after being asked about marital rape.
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Topping news tonight, the Frank Smith extortion and bribery trial came to an abrupt halt this morning after it was revealed the case's key witness would be unable to take the stand for at least 6 weeks due to an illness. Jasmine Brown was in court today and filed this report.
It was slated to be day 4 of the Frank Smith trial with continued testimony from virtual complainant Barbara Hanna. However, that did not happen after Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt revealed in court today that she was in receipt of a letter from Dr. Charles Ramming, whom she described as a notable neurologist. Ferguson Pratt said the court was satisfied that Hanna, who is the owner of Magic Touch Cleaning Company, was unable to continue her testimony, as she also noted that Dr. Ramming indicated she would not be available for 6 weeks. The chief magistrate, who met privately with prosecution and defense attorneys this morning, added that all parties agreed to have a status hearing on February 15th. At that time, it will be determined when the case will resume. Smith is on trial on allegations that he extorted $60,000 from Hanna from April 2016 to April 2017 in relation to a $500,000 contract to clean the critical care block of Princess Margaret Hospital. Smith has denied charges of extortion and bribery at his trial. Hanna has been the only witness to take the stand since the trial began in late November. The extortion trial recently took another twist when it was revealed that his alleged victim warned him to be careful. During her testimony, Hanna threw the prosecution several curveballs. She has admitted to borrowing money from Smith to buy supplies for her cleaning company, while also insisting she was testifying against her will because of pressure from police. When she last took the stand on December 1st, Hanna admitted that she warned Smith to be careful because, quote, they are out to get you. Anthony Delaney and Alicia Delancey are prosecuting the case, while Jamaican attorney Keith Knight QC and Damian Gomez QC represent Smith. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Women's advocate Marian Bethel weighing in on renewed calls for marital rape legislation. This as the Prime Minister dodged questions on the issue and said he is focused on Christmas. April Sands has that.
The Prime Minister today avoiding questions after being asked about the pressing concerns of people to lay down the law for criminalizing marital rape.
I'm looking forward to Christmas and people having a beautiful, wonderful Christmas.
Mr. Please let us know how you feel about the issue of marital rape.
Listen, I am more focused on Christmas. Too many people out there don't have food or toys, etc.
So right now, it's not
Why don't you go do your plan?
That's the only thing the Prime Minister would say today when asked his views on renewed calls for the government to criminalize marital rape. A disappointing answer, though, from member of the United Nations CDOG organization, Marian Bethel, who called the Prime Minister out today for not being the leader for women's rights during this time.
So what we're seeing is a government that the ministers are divided. All right? No plans for this. The Prime Minister says his personal views are not relevant to this. And then you've got 2 other ministers saying, yes, we want to criminalize marital rape.
Bethel condemned the Prime Minister also after he said yesterday during an interview that he shouldn't weigh in on matters with his personal opinions. Bethel says now she hopes women will play their part in leading the way for their own rights, even after Minister of Social Services Lanisha Roll came under heavy criticism for saying marital rape is a private issue.
I'm very disappointed that the Minister responsible for Gender and Family Affairs sees marital rape as a private matter. It is not a private matter. Any violation of a human right, the violence against women within a marriage, is a public matter that ought to be adjudicated by the court. It ought to be prosecuted and adjudicated by the court. This is not a private matter. Any sacredness in marriage goes out of the window when we're talking about violence against women and gender-based violence. We're talking about rape of women. There's nothing sacred about that in any marriage.
Bethel says women need to be the ones at the forefront of this movement more than anyone else. The marital bill law was put forth in 2009 under the Ingram administration, but later shelved due to controversy surrounding it. Bethel says now that's how the law is set up, promoting inequality between men and women.
Our laws actually set the tone and the climate for this kind of thing to happen, okay? Our church sets the tone and the climate for this kind of abuse to happen to women. And we as women, we've been often socialized to believe that once we get married, that we have surrendered our right to say no and to say yes to sex. All right, and so it's a whole social norm that has become acceptable that makes it very hard, both from a religious point of view, and also that there is no political will.
Reporting for our news, I'm April Sands.
Thanks, April. Immigration Minister Brent Symonette says he doesn't see the need for asylum legislation as the Bahamas already screens immigrants for those status needs. Jared Higgs tells us that the minister also believes that the challenges faced by the Bahamas are sufficiently appreciated by the international community.
Immigration Minister Brent Symonette says the Bahamas is in compliance with UN refugee guidelines. This despite a UN rapporteur recommending that the Bahamas pass asylum legislation.
The persons who are here and are here claiming that they are refugees are treated as refugees under the various treaties. They're interviewed and so forth and so on.
Symonette says he's satisfied that the screening is sufficient. His comments follow recommendations by a special UN rapporteur that the Bahamas pass legislation to protect refugees. The UN representative also said the government's end-of-year immigration deadline resulted in the Haitian community in the country being targeted disproportionately. Symonette says he understands the UN's rules and their regulations, but he says the Bahamas, as a country, also has a right to protect its borders.
Well, Bahamas also has a right to govern its boundaries and the persons who are inside the country. And we have a very serious problem with immigration in this country that may not be recognized by international organizations and or appreciated as to the extent of it. Bahamas tries to maintain its immigration rules within the confines of human rights and so on and so forth, but we also have to be cognizant of the pressure that puts on a small country.
Former Immigration Minister Fred Mitchell also told the Nassau Guardian that he didn't see a need for asylum legislation, stating that Bahamians ought to get a dose of nationalism. When Symonette was asked if there was mounting international pressure surrounding the country's handling of immigration matters, Symonette says the issue was amplified by social media. Reporting for our news, I'm Jared Higgs.
As the debate over marital rape rages on, one local pastor is reminding men that they do not own their wives and therefore cannot get some whenever and wherever they please. Pastor Mario Moxie today sitting down with our news to delve a little deeper. Giorgio Bain has that story.
According to Pastor Mario Moxie, one of the first steps that needs to be taken in this discussion of marital rape is denouncing the notion that a husband has complete ownership over his wife. And according to Moxie, twisting Bible verses to suit your personal opinion won't work.
Is that we have to dispel this ideology that man has dominion over his wife. There's a prominent thought out there that, I own her. And no man owns a wife. No man owns anybody for that matter. We are to protect the women in our lives, especially our wives. We are to do whatever we can without prejudice to ensure that no harm ever comes to them, much less be the perpetrator of that harm, whether it's through physical violence or sexual abuse. It's heart-wrenching to think that a man would think that he can do whatever he wants to do with his wife.
According to Moxie, tweaking the old legislation will not work, and he won't support attempts to amend it as proposed in 2009 under the Ingram administration.
The section reads, says that rape is defined, and it goes into an explanation, but at the end of it, it says, as long as this person is not your spouse, in essence. And they want to take that portion of it out, but in taking that portion of it out, it still does not treat this whole issue of marital rape properly, and it doesn't address married couples properly. So it's going to be hard-pressed for me, and I imagine many others, to support an amendment to that particular bill.
Since Social Services Minister Lanisha Roll's assertion yesterday that marital rape is a private matter, many residents have expressed outrage. Moxie feels as though the government was caught off guard. The Attorney General has said that marital rape legislation is currently not on the Minister administration's radar. However, Moxie offered this advice to the government.
If we're not careful with this, one of the things that we would see happen in our own country is the potential of abuse of this particular bill. You know, when is it marital rape? And I know that almost seems like an easy question to answer, but when a husband and wife are intimate with one another, that intimacy can be defined as rape, all depending on whose lens you're looking through.
Moxie says the law should provide for sexual abuse to be grounds for divorce. Reporting for our News, I'm Georgia Bain.
The Department of Immigration deported 114 illegal Haitian migrants yesterday morning on Bahamas here at a cost of $40,000. Head of the Immigration Department's enforcement unit, Neely, says the majority of the illegal migrants caught at Clifton Pier last week were included in yesterday's deportation. Immigration officers caught 56 undocumented Haitian migrants last week after a sloop made landfall at Clifton Pier. Neely said yesterday that immigration officials are also preparing for an influx of illegal landings. He said the purported captain of last week's illegal Haitian sloop told immigration officers that 5 additional sloops left Haiti for the Bahamas last week. The deportation comes as the government's December 31st deadline for all illegal migrants to leave the Bahamas approaches. Opposition leader Philip Brave Davis has called the deadline an artificial threat. In other news, Bahamians with foreign currency inside and outside of the Bahamas will have more reason to bring their money home. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis announcing a liberalization of the rules related to the types of currency Bahamians can have in their bank accounts.
I wish to announce the relaxation of exchange controls on capital transactions, namely on capital investment and current account trade transactions. These changes should come into effect as of the 1st of February 2018.
Minnis also making a second announcement related to the rates for exchange transactions.
I also wish to announce that the buying and selling rates for the investment currency market, ICM, be reduced from 12.5% and 10% respectively to 5% and 2.5% respectively. Residents will be able to fund investments at a lower rate of 1.05 Bahamian dollars to $1 US, and to repatriate investment currency proceeds to the Bahamas at a rate of 1.025 to $1 US.
Still to come on our news, a look at how ticket sales for the big show on Bay Street are shaping up. Plus, what do a mango tree and climate change have in common? That's coming up when our news returns.